Very honored and excited to have Ariel Ford with us. She is the Cupid of Consciousness, and she's the author of her debut novel. She has lots of work out there, but her debut novel, The Soulmate Secret, manifests the love of your life with the law of attraction, and her new novel, The Love Thief. The Love Thief is her first novel, which is rave reviews to that. And we are honored to have you here, appreciative, grateful. I love your commitment. And Lisa and I both very much appreciate you are a straight shooter and that you no longer entertain things you don't want to entertain. And you are direct and to the point. So, Errol, thank you for being with us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
This is very, very grateful. So let's start with I got a lot of emails from people on why glorious. We have the theme how to feel glorious and be effective. And people with the word glorious, I said, I think everybody has a very different definition of what that word means to them. For you as a queenager, and I love you kind of coining that term for yourself, what is glorious?
I'm all about having fun. That is my highest value and my biggest commitment. So when I'm being playful, that is glorious for me.
Mm. I saw a picture of you hiking this weekend and it looked glorious. Yeah. So you having fun and being doing what you love and enjoying.
Exactly.
Fantastic. What do you have to say about women being effective and not sacrificing ourselves? Because there's been a template
Well,
for
I think life requires sacrifice,
mm,
and I think it's very unrealistic to say, I don't want to sacrifice.
mm,
So as long as you're adding in enough self-care and taking care of yourself and adding in playfulness and fun times, then, you can live with some sacrifice. So there's just no getting around it. I'm 71 years old now and I've learned a lot. And I've learned it all the hard way, and having made a lot of mistakes and fought my way through all kinds of shit, what I now know is that the key to having a great life is emotional management.
mm,
All right. Life is going to go up and life is going to go down, and there's nothing you can do about it except learn how to surf the waves of life and not resist it. When things are bad, I just get into I tell myself these old stories. You probably have heard the story about the little boy who really, really wanted a pony for his birthday. And on his birthday, he ran into the barn and it was piled high with shit. And instead of freaking out, all he said was, "Oh my God, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere." And that's kind of how life is. And so I've come up with what I call my spiritual toolkit. So when I'm having those days that are surrounded with piles of shit, I work my way through it using all kinds of stuff. I do EFT tapping. I do the Sedona method. I have the Heart Math Inner Balance app. I take lavender baths. I go for walks. I have a friend I get on FaceTime with, and we are each other's uh, ain't it just horrible partners where we get to download what it is we're not happy about, And so here's the essence of what I've learned. On your good days, really appreciate the good stuff. And on your bad days, tolerate it. Just know it's not going to last forever and know that you'll get through it because you've gotten through it before.
beautiful. Yeah. I recently had the chance to read something that you wrote, which I think is along the lines of what you're saying, which is the problem with happy. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about a problem? The
Yeah. So
problem with
so I
happy.
spent a when I was younger, I was one of these very depressed kids, well, by the time I was in my 20s, I was seriously depressed and had to be put on medication. And then one day when I was 28, I just decided, you know what? I'm tired of being miserable. I'm going to study happy people. I want to figure out how to be happy. And I put all my attention on that. And of course, it led to reading personal growth books and doing workshops and all that kind of stuff. And I have to say, everything worked to a certain degree, but of course, it would still come and go. And then
Mhm.
one day I figured out that happiness was the wrong goal because happiness is dependent on people, places, experience, and stuff that comes and goes. And you don't have any control when it's going to go. So I learned this Sanskrit term called santosha. I'll show you. I even have it written on a rock here on my desk, santosha. And what santosha means is utter contentment. So when you're experiencing santosha, it's not about happiness. It's not about a feeling. It's about a choice. I'm going to choose to be content with how things are. I don't have to like them, but I can choose to be content, knowing that it's all going to change anyway. And it's one of these slippery things, you don't have it 24/7. I certainly don't have it 24/7, which is why I have this rock on my desk to constantly shift me back into the perception of contentment. And the more content that I am, and the more accepting that I can be of what's going on, the more fun I can have. And as I said, fun is my number one value these days.
I love the fun being your number one value. How for you, when you're in the shit, do you practice getting to acceptance?
Well, that's the advantage of being old, you know, because here's my favorite line from the movie The Last Marigold Hotel. It says, uh, everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not yet the end. And that is always true. So when I'm not content with how it is, I know that it's going to change. I know that eventually it will be okay.
Yeah.
And I have all this proof. I got 71 years behind me that eventually it all does turn out okay. Now, do I have to like it when it's not happening to my satisfaction? No, of course I don't like it. And I allow myself 3 minutes to bitch and moan and complain about it. That's my limit, 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, I can go down the rabbit hole. I can, what do they call that? Where you're really emphasizing catastrophize. I can catastrophize for
uh,
3 minutes and I can curse. Oh, I can talk like a truck driver. I can do all of that. But at the end of 3 minutes, I stop and then I close my eyes and I start to have, uplifting talk with myself. No, it's not true. The end is not here. We are not circling the drain. The worst is not happening. It's going to be better someday, maybe in a few minutes. And I just fill myself back up. And then I go and stand in front of a mirror and I blow myself kisses.
That's great. That's great. The everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Lisa and
Yes,
I send each other a card with that. About every 2 years, 3 years, we'll send a card during those icky moments
yes,
to each other,
yes.
reminding this too shall pass.
But I think having a time limit on how long you can be
Oh,
miserable
gee.
is really helpful. You know,
Yes.
there's no, I mean, you could crawl into bed and pull the covers over your head, but it doesn't really solve anything and it doesn't really make you feel better.
No. And you don't want our life to become about the bitching, moaning, and complaining. You
No,
got to
but
get
it
some
is
action.
necessary at times.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't
Yes.
want to suppress it.
Yes. No. Absolutely. Talk about your novel and what inspired you to write a novel after a lot of nonfiction for years. What inspired you with the love thief?
Well, I'd written 11 nonfiction books, and writing a novel was never on my to-do list. I never actually even had a thought about it. It wasn't a consideration. And
Mhm.
then one day, this movie started in my head. I started to see this story, and the title came, and the first line of the book came. And I kept pushing it away, saying, go away, go away. I'm not going to write it. I don't know how to write a novel. I don't want to write a novel. But the story kept coming and coming. And it was really highly annoying. And about 3 weeks into it, I sat down and I decided to talk to God. And I said to God, listen, it's an interesting story. I'm glad you're showing it to me. But if I were going to write this novel, I would need to go back to India to do a bunch of research. And I'm 5'8". I can't sit and coach for 21 hours. So I would need a business class ticket to go to India, which would cost about $7,000, $8,000, which at this moment I don't have. So I'm going to make a deal with you. If it's in my destiny, if I'm supposed to write this book, then I am going to manifest a business class ticket to India, and then I'll know that you really do want me to do this. And I was so happy after I had that conversation, because I thought, this is never going to happen. I am off the hook. 48 hours later, I had the ticket in my hand. It was just like unbelievable. I'd been walking around. I ran into an old business partner. He said to me, what's new? What are you up to? And I said, oh, I'm trying to manifest this business class ticket to India. And he said, when do you want to go? And I told him some dates I was thinking about. And he said, great, I'll take you. Last time we went to India together, we had a blast. And next thing I knew, I had a ticket. And the really good news is, at the last moment, he couldn't go on the trip either. So I got to go by myself, which is what I needed to do. So that was a very, very, very big sign that I was supposed to write the book. I got to India, all the different scenes in my head that I had been seeing, I tripped over everything. A lot of my story takes place in a spiritual bookstore in Rishikesh. I actually walked into the store that I had seen inside my own head. I mean, it was just wild and crazy. So the book it's a romantic spiritual thriller with
Mhm.
a very, very juicy revenge subplot and a happy surprise ending. And it took me 5 years to write it. And I'm thrilled with the way it turned out, although it was 5 years of pure torture because I didn't know how to write fiction. So I had to learn as I went. And I have a producer in Hollywood who wants to turn it into a limited streaming series, and that's going really slow, but she says it's going to happen someday.
Right.
And the only way I'm ever going to write another novel is if some big five publisher hands me a seven-figure check. Other than that, I don't plan to do it again.
I I hear you on that. So, it is beautiful when you talk about your process, and I love that you're talking about like making agreement with God, talking to God about like, hey, if you really are serious and showing me, do you want to say anything more about that for other people that are having those hits come to them, but not doing anything with them? And not, I also am big on asking God to give me a miracle or a definitive here. And so
Yeah, no,
I
I'm very big on signs. You know, was it 30 years ago? Yeah, 30 years ago, I was living in LA. And my biggest client at the time was Deepak Chopra, and he had just moved to La Jolla. And my sister, who lived in San Francisco, had just moved to La Jolla. And I was thinking, God, wouldn't it be great to live in a beautiful place like La Jolla instead of West Hollywood? But I thought, how can I do that? I have a business here, all my friends are here, it's San Diego, sleepy little San Diego. So I said to God, if I'm supposed to move to La Jolla, I need a really big sign, a really big sign. The next day we had an earthquake. And I took it as
way to go. Thanks.
I thought, okay, that sounds like a big sign. And then everything with the move just went so smoothly, and it was the best thing I've ever did. So I ask for signs, and I remember that when you're manifesting, this is the hardest thing about manifesting. It's the hardest thing to teach. When you're manifesting something, you need to do a couple of things. One, you have to have an extremely clear intention of what it is you're asking for. And at the same time that you have this clear intention, you have to go into action. Simultaneous to this, you need to stay completely surrendered and detached from the outcome. So it's like driving with a foot on the gas and a foot on the brakes. Because how do you be intentional and in action and simultaneously surrendered and detached? And the way that I do it is I just keep trusting that what is in my highest and best good is always coming to me. And
Mhm,
it's not my job to know what that is. So
mhm.
while I may have a desire for XYZ, it may be that if I get that, it will block the energy of an ABC thing that's so much bigger and better. So even though I've been studying this stuff and teaching it, I've been studying it since September 12th, 1984. I remember that day because my whole life changed once I became aware of this process.
Yeah.
Um, I still study it. I study it in all kinds of different ways, and since the pandemic, I've even changed on a different level. So previously, I could do what I now call Law of Attraction 101. I could have an idea, I could get clear about it, I could write it out, I could make affirmations, I could do a vision board, I could go into action, I could do, I do all the basic steps.
Yeah.
And 7 times out of 10, I could make it happen. I'm a pretty good manifester. Except when the pandemic hit, there was nothing I could do about that. And I was going crazy being trapped at home. And I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was so upside down about the whole thing. And I started to sort of do a big life review. And I looked at the major, most amazing, biggest things that ever happened to me in my life. And I did not consciously manifest any of them. And in fact, they all came to me when I was at an extremely low point in my life
Mhm.
where everything had that could go wrong had gone wrong and I was suffering. I mean, I was just like horribly suffering. And I would get to a point where I would just surrender. And I would just, okay, how am I going to get through this day? And I would just sort of throw it up to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and say, just show me the next step, just the next little baby step, because obviously I don't know what's going to happen. And out of that total surrender, things that were beyond my imagination came to me and changed the shape of my life. I'll give you one example. In 1990, we had this major recession. At that time, I had a very successful corporate PR firm on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. And I was making gobs of money, and I had a sports car, and I had a cute condo, and I was going to parties and galas and having lunches with, billionaires who wanted to hire me. And then one day it all stopped. Literally within a 6-week period, I lost 90% of my business. One by one, I'd get a phone call. You're the greatest. You're the best at what you do. We love you. But because of the recession, we can't afford you. We'll be back when the economy gets better. Now, I have a college degree, but I don't have an MBA. I'd never heard of a recession. I didn't know what a recession was. And I quickly found out there was nothing I could do about it. So that happened. So now I have one half-time employee. I'm moved out of my 2,000 square feet of prime real estate into a closet office somewhere. I am on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm severely depressed. My relationship blew up, and I got Epstein-Barr. So like it couldn't have gotten any worse. And really, one of the hardest things for me, this is going to sound so petty, I had to give myself my own manicures. That was like the worst part of it because I'm so uncoordinated. I couldn't even afford a manicure. So I had about 9 months of this, you know, dark night of the soul. And I was really depressed. And I didn't know about EFT tapping or any of that. So one day in the midst of my poor me life, oh, the other thing that happened was I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I didn't want to rebuild the business I just lost because upon losing it, I discovered I hated all my clients. I liked the big checks, but I didn't like them as human beings. I didn't like them at all. And so I was stuck with, okay, well, if I were going to create a new career, what would I do?
Mm.
So I get a call from a friend of mine one day, and he says to me, meet me at Sunset Plaza. I'm going to take you out to lunch. So we go to lunch. It's a beautiful spring day. The sun is shining. We're at this cute little thing. And he says to me, if you could represent anybody in the world, who would it be? Now, this is now 1991. And I thought about it for a second and I said, well, there's this man out there. You've probably never even heard of him, but I think he's the best kept secret in America and I'd like to do his PR. He said, well, who is it? I said, you probably don't know who he is. His name's Deepak Chopra. And my friend says to me, not only have I heard of him, my friend Penny works for him. And I said, oh, that's fascinating. And later that day, this woman, Penny, calls me up and she says, oh, how synchronistic that Patrick told me about you today. Dr. Chopra called me this morning and he asked me to find him a publicist. I was like,
Nice.
oh, okay. And he said he lived in Boston back in those days. He said he's going to be in LA in 8 days. I'll set up a meeting. So 8 days later, I go to the place I was supposed to meet him at. And he was finishing giving a speech somewhere. And he's, like 25 minutes late for the meeting. He suddenly comes racing in, doesn't even apologize for being late. He just looks at his watch and says to me, I only have 5 minutes. And I said, great. I only need two. He said, go. I said, if you're half as smart as I think you are, you'll hire me. And he said, deal. And that was the start of a 12-year working relationship, which expanded into a completely career change because I realized that if I were going to use my talents to do PR, I only wanted to represent people, places, things, and products that were good for the planet. So within a year, my clients then included Louise Hay, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, Don Miguel Ruiz, Gary Zukav. I mean, everybody in the personal growth space became my client. That was my specialty. I was good at it because A, I knew how to do PR, and B, I loved their work. So I was highly enthusiastic. So to get back to where we were about manifesting, had I known what I had wanted, none of this could have happened. It was getting to the bottom of the pit and not dying, and then God sending me this friend who, we had a conversation that changed my life. Now, this happened again. Oh, I guess it was 15 years later. I was really tired of doing book publicity for self growth, personal, spiritual authors. It was exhausting. They weren't necessarily exhausting, but the work itself was. So it's now 2004. And one day my husband walked into my office and he saw that I was shaking. And he said, why are you shaking? And I said, well, I just got off this phone with this author who wants to be a client. And I had the Oprah conversation with her. The Oprah conversation was, chances are, even though I've gotten other clients on Oprah, I'm not going to get you on Oprah. So you need to know that in advance, because if that's how you're going to gauge success, we can't work together. And of course, she tried to convince me that, of course, Oprah's going to love her. And it wasn't an Oprah kind of book. And my husband said, you don't have to do this anymore. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we could close your business down. And I said, but you work here as well. If I close our business down, we are both going to be out of work. And we don't really have a plan B, and we're not that rich. And he said to me, it will be okay. He said, I'd rather have you alive and broke than dead. And if you keep this up, you're going to die. Over the weekend, we shut the business down. Just shut it down. I was number one in my field and we shut it down with no plan B. And of course, I was freaking out and highly anxious. And he grew up in a wealthy family, never had to worry about money, even though they no longer had a lot of money. So he didn't have poverty consciousness, but I did. So I'm freaking out and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And finally, I remembered the last time I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to surrender. I'm just going to trust that there's a reason this is happening. 6 weeks later, I got a call from a man I'd only met one time. You guys know him. I got a call from Gay Hendricks. And Gay said to me, I want you to come to my house and have a meeting with me. I have an idea. We had nothing else to do. We weren't going to an office. So we did the 5-hour drive to where Gay lived, sat down with him. And he said, I have a startup and I want you to be my business partner. It's a company called Spiritual Cinema Circle. We're going to find consciousness movies and put them on DVDs, and we're going to send them out to members, and you're going to be my partner. So there's no upfront money. You're not going to get a salary, but you're going to own a piece of the business. And if it works, then you'll have all kinds of stuff. We started the business. Within 90 days, we had it up and running at a profit. And 3 years later, we sold it for $6 million. Now, I did not make $1 million on this. We had other partners, but I did make money all along the way because I started getting a salary. He bought me a brand new Lexus SUV. I mean, it was great. Now, could I have manifested that? No. Why? Because my imagination isn't vast enough to have imagined having a startup and what the startup would look like and what my role in the startup would be. I couldn't have manifested that. I couldn't have had the clarity and the intention to do it, but I had surrendered. So, and I'm in the process of doing that again right now.
Uh,
So I've been a love expert for
That's what it
15
feels
years.
like.
Yeah,
So
and I've just decided it's time for something else. And then I did a TED talk on being a Wabi-sabi queenager, and I see that that's my future. Okay, so I'll shut up.
no,
No.
don't shut up. Please do not. There's lots. One, I'm wanting to point out to everybody, risking, not knowing and trusting the next step is key. Risking and going for it. And I'd like you to say, because I was feeling into it and it's very, very wise. Sometimes we con ourselves into surrender. It's a mental act. We think we're surrendered, but we're not really in total surrender. How would you articulate?
Well, because it's a dynamic process. It's not like, okay, I surrender and then you
Yeah,
are surrendered.
yeah.
It's a constant reminder. Let's talk about core wounds for just a moment, okay? So, most of us in the personal development world are there because we have core wounds we want to heal, that we want to get over. And you do all this work and you go to therapy and you read books and you write books and you teach it. And you discover that at the end of the day, it's never really gone. It's better. You
Yeah.
know how to make it better. You know what to do when it flares up, but it never really goes away. So I finally accepted the fact that I am going to die with my core wounds. However, I am not going to suffer with my core wounds because I now have this spiritual toolkit of how to deal with them, and they do get better. They do get better. So for me, surrender is, like there are days even now where I'm thinking, oh my God, you could be coaching 5 people a week on how to find their soulmate. I could do that, but it's not fun anymore. I don't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, even when I'm doing it, it is kind of fun. But I want to create this emptiness. I want to create this sea of love and mercy that I can just float in, where I can be receptive to whatever's next. Now, it may be something to do with being queenager, or it may not. I'm not attached to that, but I am now surrendering on a daily basis to not knowing what my identity is, because I've had lots of identities and I don't want any of those anymore. And who am I becoming at age 71? Like I should be thinking about retirement, but the thought of retiring is a form of suffering. Like that would be so boring. I don't want to be bored. I like to be turned on and excited and have passion, and I like to be in control of my time. So I'm surrendering to what's next as long as it doesn't come with too much responsibilities and no deadlines. I'm allergic to deadlines. Does that explain it?
As a publicist, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And letting go of the how.
Oh, well, you can never know the how,
Yeah.
I don't actually need to, but right now I don't even know the what.
Yeah. Yeah. The what is coming to you.
Yeah, it'll show up when it does. But instead of feeling fear and anxiety, which I have felt in the past, in those past situations, like, oh my God, and I'm like holding on for dear life, I am now experiencing excitement and anticipation. I ran into our friend Doria yesterday.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
yes,
Dizzy.
yeah. And and she was asking me, well, what's new? I said, well, I don't really know, except that I'm so excited and I'm anticipating something so big, but I can't label it for you.
Right. Right. So I love that you've mentioned a couple of times getting on with friends to support. Talk a little bit about women lifting each other up because it hasn't always been the culture, and sometimes it's not. It's competition or pulling down versus elevating and celebrating and highlighting
Well,
and surrounding
early on,
who you
early
surround
on in
yourself.
my career, um, I was doing publicity, but I wasn't doing book publicity, but I had written and self-published my first book. So I found out who the number one book publicist was, and I called her office, and I thought like through some kind of professional courtesy, I could ask her some questions. So I asked her some questions, and she couldn't have been meaner or nastier, and basically said, I'm not going to give you my trade secrets, blah, 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 blah. And I decided in that moment that if any woman ever asked me for help, I was going to say yes. I
Mm,
was not going to be that person. And I
mm,
was not going to allow those kinds of people anywhere near me. So since that nasty phone call way back when, I haven't had the experience. I have found that
right.
at least the women that I'm attracted to and want to be friends with want to help each other because there's we live in an abundant universe. There's more than enough for everybody. Even in fact, almost all my closest friends are relationship experts. They're not my competitors. I don't actually see that I would have competition because we all have a different approach to how we do things. And there are people I refer out to my friends all the time about everything. So I know that that's true, but that's how I fixed it for me.
Right.
That's beautiful. Yeah, one nasty phone call handled it.
Yeah,
Basically, that's powerful. Did
yeah.
you ever have the perfectionist bug in your life in terms of, constantly judging?
Yes,
Need to be
yes, I did. And I'll tell you the fix for that. So back in my corporate PR days, I used to represent art galleries on Rodeo Drive. So I subscribed to all the art publications, Art in America, Art News. I don't remember the names of the other one. One of the biggest magazines, I mean physically biggest magazines, showed up in the mail one day, and on the cover was a black and white photo of a Ming vase with a long crooked crack down the middle of it. And the headline was Wabi-sabi, Wabi-sabi. And I thought, what the heck is Wabi-sabi? So I read the article, and explained that Wabi-sabi is a Japanese aesthetic that honors all things old, worn, imperfect, and impermanent, and it seeks to find beauty and perfection in imperfection. And while I'm reading this magazine, I look down at my skirt, which has this big red spaghetti stain on it because I had just come back from lunch where I had spilled my food all over me. And I thought to myself, I'm kind of wabi sabi. I'm just a slob. And I warn people when I eat with them, I'm a very messy eater. I'm going to get my food on me and I'm going to get it on you. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be a wabi-sabi eater, how would I explain that to people? So I decided that rather than tell people I'm a slob, I tell them I'm a highly enthusiastic foodie. And I may get my food on you, and I'm definitely going to get it on me. And I decided to dedicate my life to becoming a wabi-sabi artisan, which means that I wasn't going to beat myself up over my imperfections anymore. And like if you get an email from me, you may have noticed this. It says after my name, I don't charge extra for typos. Because even as a writer, people are always coming after me, but you're a writer and you had a typo in this. It's like, so what? Did you understand what I was trying to convey? If you understood it, I'm a good writer, And this is why we have Grammarly and we now have AI and we have other things to help us with typos. But I got over typos and then I used it in lots of other areas of my life. So today, if I have to give myself a label, I claim that I'm a wabi sabi queenager. I am an perfectly imperfect teenager dedicated to having as much fun as possible.
Mm, mm. How do you see Wabi-sabi unfolding at this point in your life? I noticed the first thing I noticed, let me just say, your background is engaging. It's a kitchen. Most people would never have the
Oh,
camera in their
actually, it's
kitchen.
not a kitchen. It's my office. That's an altar back there with all my goddesses on there.
Right, it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I love vibrant color,
Yeah.
and this is my creativity cave. So this is solely for me. You can't see the rest of it, but there's books and art and photographs of gurus everywhere. And, it's
Cabinets and stuff, things stuck on the cabinets, but
yes, yes, yes,
I
yes.
love that it is human, relatable.
Yeah.
You have lots going on. It's great. And most people wouldn't do that with their background.
Yeah, no, I was looking at you guys' backgrounds, like, oh, it's nice, so clean and chic and sophisticated, but that's just not who I am. I'm pretty clean, but chic now, not so much, sophisticated, not so much. But yeah, so I think understanding that we are all imperfect is really, really important, especially when it comes to relationships. Um,
Mm.
my favorite quote is from, okay, am I going to remember his name? I'm not going to remember his name right now. My favorite quote is, we come to love not to find a perfect partner, but to learn to love an imperfect partner perfectly. That's by Sam Keen.
Yeah.
And we need to do that with everybody in our lives because you're not perfect and they're not perfect. And we need to learn how to love them anyway.
What do you do in those moments? In terms of those relationship moments, and I love relationship, and I'm big on relationship as well, and couples. What do you say when those partners are hitting each other's imperfections?
Well, I think the very first thing you need to do is take a time out. Don't escalate into warfare. If you're triggered, get out of there. And then go figure out what triggered you and see if you can own it to see if it's really your issue, right? And do what you need to do to get yourself into a heart neutral space. And then you want to go back and apologize or explain what happened. Like, for instance, this is an example I like to use about how to do wabi-sabi love. So imagine that my husband and I were at a party last night and we were talking to Lisa and Lynne at the party. And he said something that really offended me. Now, in the moment, I could rip him a new one. I could get really nasty about the whole thing, or I could just keep my mouth shut. So in my case, I would say, keep your mouth shut. And then you get in the car to go home, and it's after midnight, and everybody's tired. So you don't bring it up in the car. Then you get into bed. That's not the time to have a conversation. I do believe in going to bed angry. I think, and then in the morning, when you wake up, you just say to your partner, uh, do you have 10 minutes where you can help me with a problem sometime today? And it's like, oh, well, what is it? Let me do it now. No, no, no. I don't want to do it now. Just tell me a good time. Give me 10 minutes sometime today where you could help me with this problem. Okay. Oh, well, I'll be home at 4. Let's go for a quick walk at 4 o'clock. Great. It's 4 o'clock. We're going for a walk. And if it were me, I would say to Brian, listen, I know how much you love me. And I know that you would never purposely try to upset me or hurt me in any way. And last night when we were with Lisa and Lynne and you said ABC, I felt XYZ. And then you shut up, like shut up completely. Not another word is to come out of your mouth and you let them talk. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant. Whatever it is. All right. And then you go, I knew that's how it was. Thanks. I just needed to have this conversation. And you're done and you never bring it up again. Okay? That's wabi-sabi love. You don't beat them up for the rest of their lives. Oh, but you said such and such. We say stupid shit all the time to each other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we don't love you, which gets me to another one of my favorite topics. Let's talk about what love is. Okay?
Yes.
Most people are clueless about what love is. I was clueless about what love is. So we think that love is a feeling. Oh my God, I love you so much. Every time I'm with you, it feels like champagne bubbles are going through my veins. And this goes on for 6 or 9 months because it doesn't last forever. You're
Yeah.
in this state that we called in love. This has nothing to do with love. What this is nature's trick to get us to procreate. It is your brain on drugs, really awesome drugs. It's your brain on dopamine and adrenaline and oxytocin and serotonin, and it feels great. It has no relationship to real love. It just doesn't. It just feels really good. And it's the thing that gets you into relationship so you can get to real love. Okay, so what's real love? And some of you are going to like hate me for this, but love is a behavior. Love is a choice. Love is a decision. Love is an act. Love is a way of being. And there are some good feelings that come and go. But when the good feelings aren't there, it doesn't mean that you don't love them. It just means that your brain is not on dopamine at the moment. So, understanding what real mature adult love is critical to having a really great long term committed relationship.
Mm.
And that means understanding that you're imperfect and they're imperfect, and you have to find ways to have conversations so that you can coexist.
Mhm. And I love that you're not defining romantic love because this is loving our mother. This is
Oh,
loving
yeah, it's
this is
anybody, everybody. Yeah,
everybody,
no, mothers can be especially hard to love.
right? I, I hear you.
And you got to just love them for who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So that imperfection, and it isn't a feeling. It is I say a verb, it is an action
It's
that
all
we,
of those things. And
yeah,
like I said, the
yeah,
good feelings come and go. But when the feelings aren't there, it doesn't mean that you do. Like your kids, like you know how to do this with your kids. There are moments when you hate your kids
yeah,
and you know that you love them. And two things can be true at once.
yeah. And moments when they hate you.
Oh, well,
Well,
Whole
that
years,
would be a while.
whole years, like periods of time,
decades, teenagers. Yeah, no.
decades go by. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Uh, what do you feel about women having it all? Because I think the 60s, the 70s, the whole like look beautiful, make the money, raise the kids, clean the kitchen,
Yeah.
go
Yeah. That was
shopping.
that was a big fat lie we got sold. It's a big myth. You cannot have it all at the same time. You just can't.
Yeah,
It's like physically impossible. And it's probably not even good for you.
yeah,
And um yeah, no, you can have it all in the right time, right? Over the course of your life, you can have it all. But to have it all right in this moment and have it be real and be grounded, that's going to be a momentary thing. And then when part of all drops away, then you're going to be miserable. So I think we have to sort of let go of the myths that we've been sold and bought into. Um, it's kind of like one of the reasons I'm so attracted to the pro aging conversation right now is that for decades we've been sold this whole anti aging thing. Oh my God, we've got to have creams and lotions and Botox and fillers and na 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 na. And the truth is, everybody knows you're doing it when you're doing it. Like, who do
yeah,
you think you're kidding,
yeah.
right? And I read something recently that made so much sense to me. Sort of one of the deeper truths of life. One of the deeper truths of life is that death is stalking us at all moments. We are going to die. We know we're going to die, but we're fighting and we don't want to die. And it said that when you look in the mirror and you see your face in the morning in some harsh light, and you see that you can see what your age really is, the point of that is preparation for death. Now, I'm not saying you should never do anything to try and look better. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that you can have both. You can have some surrender and acceptance. Yes, things are falling. Gravity really exists. And B, some creams are better than others, and little tweaks here and there are okay. But if you're at the point where you're pulled so tight that it's just not a good thing. Um,
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day. It's like I still have these conversations when my eyes are all puffy and baggy in the morning. It's like I could do something about this, you know. But for who would I be doing it? It wouldn't be for my husband. He would be not happy if I like got a knife taken to my face. He would not be happy about it. But then there are things like I have on right now. I have my Zoom filters on. I love my Zoom filters. I don't do Instagram lives because there are no Instagram filters like the Zoom filters, right? Now,
Yes.
somebody out there who's smart could probably invent the Instagram filter. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But I love Zoom filters. So, I'm probably contradicting myself like crazy here, but
Oh,
I don't even remember what
that-
the
that-
question was.
I think that's the feminine. The feminine is multiple, holding multiple things simultaneously. We've
Oh,
been talking about that. And
yeah,
so, yeah, it is, I love pro aging and pro facing the void, the
yeah,
existential void that we're all dying. We are all actively dying in this moment
yeah.
and facing it instead of deluding ourselves. And yes, using the creams. What are you most excited about for women at this period in history? What do you want to see for women?
Oh God. Well, what would I like to see? I think the girls have got to get in there and take over. I can't take much more of the patriarchy. I've had enough. I've had enough. It's just not working. Uh, and but there doesn't appear to be a strong enough desire, at least in this country, for women's leadership. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to make that happen. I know that it's not my job. I am way too unfiltered to be in politics, and I would be getting canceled left and right. So I know I can't do that. But yeah, there's empathy and compassion and service missing, and it's just a mess. I mean, it, the two women that I most admire these days are E. Jean Carroll and Stormy Daniels. They're brilliant. They're smart. They know how to make stuff happen. They're fearless when it comes to speaking out. Like if either one of them were going to run for office, I would support them in a heartbeat.
Mhm, mhm. Great. Yeah. So women using their voices and speaking out
Yeah.
without, in the face of fear and in the
Yeah.
face of attack.
Well, they will be attacked.
They are attacked.
Right.
There's no
They are
question
being
about it.
attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that our voices are needed and we get to step up and rise up and up. People have been commenting of the whole fear of saying things even in the summit or posting things on social media that could be seen as political and not wanting to offend instead of being willing to step forward and speak out, even if it does ruffle feathers and offend.
Well, there's a price in business that is paid if you speak your truth politically.
Yep.
It's terrible, but it's true. I
Yeah.
on October 8th, when the day after the whole Israel Hamas thing started, I found this meme. It was blue and white, and it was very innocuous. It was just something like along the lines of, "Can't we all just get along?" It was that simple. I posted it on Instagram, and within an hour, I lost 100 followers. And I realized it's because I have taught in Kuwait several times. I have taught women in burqas how to manifest love. It's crazy, I know. All of my Middle Eastern followers, because it was blue and white, the colors of the Israeli flag, that was it. They were gone.
Yeah.
As opposed to the message, which was I wasn't taking sides. As far as I'm concerned, everybody's wrong. There's everybody's wrong on this conversation. We've had
Yeah.
60 years to come up with a two-state solution. Okay,
Yeah.
so something's not working here, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so getting canceled is a real thing. I
Mhm.
went to a political fundraiser a week ago today, and Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin were there raising money for a woman running for office here in San Diego. There were 500 people in this woman's backyard. It was a mansion. It was an incredible place. And I was sitting pretty close to the front. So I took this really cute picture of Lily and Jane, and I posted it with, Jane's on fire, helping this woman, Tara, get elected, blah, blah, blah. And I posted it on this women's group site on Facebook. I got ripped. I had to take it down. How dare you on Memorial Day weekend put Hanoi Jane on our page? And I was like,
That
it
was
never
50 years ago.
occurred to me that I was offending somebody. I thought here are
Yeah.
two smart,
Yeah.
politically activist women supporting a woman, and they're shredding me for something she did when she was 19 years old. Anyway, I thank God you can take stuff down.
Yeah,
It's a mess.
it is definitely tricky. I think, I was saying it's hard to even find something to post that is neutral enough of like, let's stop war, let's all have peace. It's all either with a flag or colors, positional.
I mean, now if I drive past a house and it has an American flag on it, I'm thinking Trumper.
Yeah,
It's like,
the hijacking of the American flag.
yeah, and I'm the one who has the Marianne Williamson yard sign, Marianne for president, in my front yard. So it's kind of like they're thinking about me.
Yeah. Yeah, great. You've been such a
Can
gift.
Can I just ask one quick question? Can I
Yeah.
ask the question?
Of course.
So, Ariel, interesting because I posted something and fascinatingly, I thought I was going to get a lot of blowback, but what I did get was somebody who was having a nuanced conversation with me, which I so appreciate. Completely different point of view, but a nuanced conversation. How do we start that? How do you have any ideas about like how do we have a less charged but
So you're,
nuanced
did you
conversation?
talk to Marcy Cole already, or is she coming
No,
up?
she's coming right now. She's here.
That's the person to have that conversation with.
Yeah.
Marcy can go deep with that, and she can do it. I can't, because as I said, I'm too unfiltered. I'm just I just want to grab them by the neck and slap them and go, what's the matter with you? Like, what part of this don't you get?
Right.
I'm not good, but Marcy is.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well,
We're-
something to look forward to. Yeah.
We're about to have that conversation with Marcy, and uh, you've been a gift. What is your gift that you have for people for this summit?
A gift, you said?
Well, you have a free gift you're giving them.
Your free gift.
So it's not up yet. So here's what I can tell you. If you go to my website, arielford.com, and sign up for my newsletter, when the gift is ready, it will be in the newsletter. So I'm in the process of creating a what type of queenager are you quiz that's going to be filled with all kinds of very cool stuff. And my webmaster's been a little slow, so it's not up there yet, but I send out a newsletter every Tuesday, and it's just me unfiltered, sharing about what I'm excited about: love, life, relationships, imperfection, aging now. So you'll get it later, but I don't have it today. Here's what I can tell you. One of the types of queenagers that you might end up being is a badass queenager.
All right. That's
cool.
pretty exciting.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for taking time on your Saturday.
Oh,
I
thanks
hope
for
this has
having
been
me.
somewhat fun for you as well as
No, listen, you guys let me talk about things I normally don't get to talk about. So I so appreciate that. Like, I can sort of I didn't drop any F-bombs today, so I'm proud of myself for that.
Well, we did that
I
yesterday.
am a sailor. Anybody who knows me, I am a sailor. So
Yeah.
I am regularly F-bombing,
Yes,
uncensored, and we
it's a
appreciate
useful word.
anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you guys for the work
Thank
you do in the
you.
world, and the energy and the love that you share, and the community that you've pulled together, because we need more of that.
Thank you. Let Ariel know
Thank
she
you.
made a difference for you. Give her
Hospital, Ariel
that.
Ford.